Meltdown Abroad is the only podcast run by an educational psychologist and an occupational therapist designed specifically for expat parents navigating life abroad while managing the emotional ups and downs that come with parenting far from home.
We are two professionals who live the chaos we coach other people through. I'm Chanel, the pediatric occupational therapist, and Tara is our educational psychologist. We will share real stories full of humor and authentic experiences, as well as expert insights for expat families navigating overwhelm, burnout, and a lot of big emotions. Hey, Tara.
Well, hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. We're in full transition mode over here,
Yeah,
but we're doing well.
that's true. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So, since we're in the back to school season, what gives you the most anxiety? Summer break or back to school?
Woo. Back to school. Back to school. But I think there's sort of these waves that happen. So with back to school, there's all of this like worry about your kids and how they're going to do with the transition. It's like this sort of it almost doesn't even belong to you, but it happens. And then there's just actually the sheer kind of management of all of those pieces and what you need. And then they're actually settled in, and then you actually have to settle yourself, right? So that there's sort of two parts to it. And I think that's maybe slightly harder for me than navigating summer.
It's interesting because I was talking to my best friend the other week and she made a comment and was like, I can't wait for back to school. And my best friend, she lives in Toronto.
Okay.
And so I thought about what we had said in the previous episode about just being in automatic mode.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's an interesting statement she made because my families here do not feel like that. And so I was like, that's another expat experience.
Yeah.
Because definitely in Germany, you do have so much paperwork and just so many different things that you might not be used to back home.
Yeah.
That transition piece can feel really hard. I know I have a client who one of her daughters is entering first grade.
Okay.
And so it's a different school. It's the same school but a different location, and so she thought that would be an easy transition. She's like, oh my gosh, like why is there paperwork for this?
That's it, I think, because you have this element of not knowing what to expect in the same way that even though there's a new teacher, which you would be navigating at least at the primary level for sure, at the secondary level there's many more new things, but you probably know the school and you know the town and you know the things that need to be done, in the same way that you go to the grocery store and you know what to get. There's just a familiarity with the systems and the processes that you don't have when you're in a different country.
Or someone who did it before, and so
Exactly.
you can just say, hey. Whereas here, whether you're part of the expat community or if you're part of the native German community, it's really who you know.
Yeah, and that goes back to the episode where we were talking about peers and community, because the more we do build that up, the bigger the network is that we can actually ask some of these questions and find out, has anyone had this teacher before, or does anyone have some experiences with this school? And you can get some of that feedback, because there's just a lot more variables, and anxiety loves to show up when there's a lot of unknowns and when there's a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah. What are some of the signs you would say shows up for you as a parent when you're starting to get that anxiousness for the back to school season?
Well, it's different for everybody, but for me, I will find myself having sort of a shorter fuse, and it's usually because I'm thinking about a million things, so I'm actually just more overwhelmed. I just have certain physical things that occur where I might feel a little bit more sick to my stomach, or I might feel like a little bit queasy. That kind of thing happens to me all the time. Occasionally a heart racing type of thing, but that's
Yeah.
less common. I'd have to be more anxious for that. But also sometimes just it feels like the intensity knob is just turned up,
That's
you
it.
know? And that's it the majority of the time for me. And then I have to notice that it's happened, and almost once I have noticed, it can move.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's like all the things that we're trying to navigate just feel bigger, faster, and more intense.
Yeah. That's the nervous system. So our nervous system is in this like heightened sense of awareness. It's more heightened and it's more it's almost more delicate.
That's it, because you think about any other environments. I know that we're talking about transition and anxiety, and all these back to school season and all of this stuff, which are in the large scheme of things, they're not dangerous things, right? Um, but our bodies are really primed when things are new and when they're changing. We're primed to be alert and to look for things that could be tricky or things that are challenges, so that we can navigate them safely, right?
Fight or flight.
Exactly.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, one of the strategies that I often tell my clients to try is what's one sensory thing that you can remove, right? What's one sensory component that you can remove? Because everything, the volume is louder, right? Internally, externally.
Yeah.
So what can we dim? What can we turn down? And so we have like the palming strategy where you just you block out your eyes with your palms, and that can be really effective just for the visuals.
Yeah, just pull it down.
Just to turn it down a little bit.
I love that, and I often will talk to my clients, and I even do it myself also when I'm talking with parents, because they're also trying to work and they're navigating these transitions and all of this newness, and that intensity is turned up. Is even just creating small space in between the things you need to do for work that might be a little bit bigger than it was before. So even for me, that might mean that I have 20 to 30 minutes in between client meetings instead of 5 or 10.
Yeah.
Right? Because it just gives me a little bit more space, a little bit more quiet, and it turns it down a little bit during times when I know I'm going to be a little bit more overstimulated or a little bit more overwhelmed.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, you really have to figure out how to fit that into your daily routines, right? Because we do have that piece where maybe you can't find that 30 minutes in between dinner and getting the kids ready for bed.
Yeah, that's right.
It's just go, and there's a time crunch because now you actually have to follow schedule again.
Yeah.
So it's trying to really pick a nuanced time, even if it's just the bathroom. Stay in there 5 minutes longer.
Yeah.
And just be by
That's
yourself.
it. Just don't move more slowly through the things that you would otherwise be doing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually find even just keeping like a little bin that has washcloths, where you can just put some cold water on it and just pass it onto your face. It's 30 seconds, and it really calms things down. It's interesting because it's similar to what you were talking about with the eyes.
Yeah. So the cold compress, that's a whole
streamy
topic that I can talk about. But cold exposure is really powerful for anxiety. It's just one of those things that alerts us. It's a shock to our system, and it resets it in a sense, or it takes you out of that moment of the anxiousness, the rushing, the fear base. It removes you, shocks your system out of it just for a moment. It's very grounding. But I feel like that's a topic we can save.
Yeah,
if you guys really want to know about cold exposure.
Yeah, but there is one thing I think to say on that though, because when we're really anxious, and I work with families on this all the time, is that there are all sorts of things that we can do with the mind. There's all sorts of things that we can be truly one or two thoughts away from having a totally different mindset or feeling. However, when we're quite anxious, a lot of the time, you've got to tap into the body first.
Yes.
Because we don't always have access to any of those things in those moments. And so these small, quick tools that just help you regulate your body get you to a place where any of those other things might be helpful for you.
And it's the most realistic and real-time thing you can do is access yourself. Our body speaks to us in so many ways. I always give the example of stress eating. We feel hungry, right? But if you really think about the patterns, like, are you actually hungry? When I eat this right now, do I feel like I'm quenching hunger? Is the hunger dissipating, or do I feel the need to eat some more and more and more? And that, again, is a different sensory system that's actually in overdrive right now. It's our proprioceptive system. And so the jaw is what is craving that thing inside of our mouth, and it's not our stomach. But we think it's hunger. But if we listen closely and we follow the patterns, our bodies talk to us in so many ways.
This goes back to your gum example when you had that stress,
Oh my gosh.
that very difficult scenario, and then and then you were chewing.
My body was
chewing so
automatically regulating itself.
That's right.
I didn't even realize.
But that's what's so great is when you're used to using tools, you can just access. You can actually access them when you need them because you're used to using them.
Exactly, and so it's what you're saying. It's taking that pause, moving slower, taking that break. It feels hard at first.
Yeah.
It feels like it's impossible, or where am I going to find time to do this?
Exactly.
But as you practice it, our bodies, like our brain, it's so good at being efficient. And so it just needs practice. We just need to do that thing over and over again until the brain realizes, like, this is a necessity. And so something I'm going to store so that you don't have to actively think about having to engage this. It's that muscle memory, our brain memory, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we can create some habits around it sometimes. Like if even just generally, if you know that between 5 and 7 is a really stressful time, doing something right before 5 that's different from the normal pattern shakes up your emotional response to that period of time. And that's really powerful and really helpful. I've been starting to do this also myself, even just doing that cold compress, for instance, right before I go into something where I know there's just more input. Like it's on the one hand lovely where they're like all trying to tell you about their day at the exact same time, and you kind of can't actually process any of the things that they're saying, and so you have to have them say it again one at a time, and then there might be music on, and then food needs to be made, and people are getting hungry and a little cranky, and so there's just so many needs that you walk into at that time period, and having a little bit of a reset before you do that changes how intense that feels.
Yeah. I mean, my go-to strategy, I get really overwhelmed with auditory. So if I'm going into a situation, the first thing I do is either plug in my noise canceling. I've gone from always driving a car to now being on the train for most of my journeys. And the train gets so loud. Like I can't handle it. So before I go on the train, it's either I have my earpods or I have a noise canceling earbud that I put in. It's just setting myself up, because going to work in that state is not helpful.
It doesn't help you. And that's it. I mean, I have the exact same thing. I'm really sensitive from an auditory perspective, and I almost always have my headphones, and they're always turned to noise canceling. But doing those things throughout the day, it's almost like you're protecting yourself from overflowing by the end of the day by doing these small things throughout the day that don't overwhelm your sensory system.
Exactly. You have to find that balance. It's similar to maybe, parents, if you have young kids, toddlers or babies, you find yourself picking them up all the time. That bending, you're stressing one of your sensory systems. So constantly doing this bending to pick the kids up, to pick toys off the floor, you're stressing a part of your system. And what can we do to balance it out? What can we add? Maybe you need more visuals or more auditory. Like, we just need to make sure we're balancing, because too much of anything isn't good. It works the same. Our brain can over process if it's getting too much of a particular input, right? Yeah, I definitely want to deep dive into our sensory system a bit more and kind of talk about navigating that as you're traveling as well. That's
big.
That's a big piece.
Because there's so many of all of these things that we're talking about actually in travel, where you're overstimulated, you're on deadlines, you're likely more anxious, at least a little bit, right? Some people are also anxious about flying generally, but there's also just the time crunch, getting through the airport, getting all the things you need when you are with your children.
Yeah, I was going to say uprooting the family, that's a whole different...
It's a whole different ball game. Traveling on your own is really different than traveling with your kids. And also knowing particularly if you have neurodiverse kids, if you have kids that struggle to sit in an airplane chair for the length or the duration of a normal flight, which is generally most kids also, but you also know that. And so if you know the experience, you are also likely very aware of what's about to happen, and you can be nervous about that as well. And it can feel overwhelming. So having some tools for that is really, really helpful.
So, I mean, since we're in the back to school season, and just thinking about how anxiety kind of makes its way around first the getting the kids back to school, getting the kids back into a new routine, getting yourself back into a routine. And then when that's said and done, now you have to think about the self, the anxious self.
That's right. Now you have to think about you.
The overstimulated self at this point.
Yeah. Because it is, the kids get into their rhythm, and so there's trickiness usually with newness, right? And some high emotions around that, and we're often navigating slightly more irritability and slightly bigger emotions from them at the end of the day during those first few weeks. And so you're holding that, right? In addition to all the other things you were holding before. But then they level off, and we get to reset ourselves. And we get to rebuild our routines intentionally. Though there can be some bumps as we get back into that, and remembering that we need to do that for ourselves.
Because I think what would end up happening is you're so overwhelmed that it trickles into that anxiety piece. And you don't realize you're wondering why you just can't get over the state, because the kids are back, the routines are back, and now like I just can't get back into my routine or focus on my work the same way. It's because, well, if we haven't set ourselves up from the start, like I said, the brain gets overwhelmed, the body gets overwhelmed, our nervous system gets to the point of gets so dysregulated that it's completely out of whack, and we're having symptoms for all sorts.
And so we need a reset. And we can do that in so many different ways. We can do that using small physical tools to re-regulate, right? We can even just beginning by acknowledging that, like, well, of course, we've been holding everybody else's nerves for several weeks, right? And so all it is that your body's been holding that, right? And we need to allow ourselves to sort of slowly unravel that.
Yeah, and I think awareness is so key. It's so important at this point. It's kind of mapping out like this is probably what's going to happen, preparing ourselves for it, right? So we're here telling you that this is likely
going to happen.
What's going to happen? So be prepared. The going back to school, especially if you're in a new environment, that's going to be a battle on its own. Trying to navigate. If you're in Germany right now, I have parents trying to figure out, well, if my child is neurodivergent, what laws are in place or what support is in place for us to be able to take off work so that we can support our kids. So it's trying to get that kind of information, thinking about, can I do a 40-hour shift and be able to see my kids? This is going to be as highly dysregulated in time for them, whether they're just going back to a school routine or a new school, a new environment. If something happens, what can I do?
Right. Am I allowed to pick them up? Am I allowed to take off work to be able to do that?
Exactly. So trying to almost, and I know this is hard, like giving yourself the questions before you even have to ask, like be in the position to have to ask, like realize, hey, I didn't think this was going to be a thing, but here I am. It's really that preparedness that's going to set you up for success.
That's right. And when you have already built a little bit of community and you have, all of these online groups and things are very helpful for even just tapping into other parent resources.
If you don't have a community.
But Yeah.
That's definitely what you want to start with.
Yeah, exactly. And then certainly if now you've maybe been at the school for a year or something and you've made some friends and made some connections, really relying on some of those connections, trusting them, chatting with them about some of the experiences that they have had.
Yeah.
To help guide you. And certainly we know lots of people who can help navigate just what the laws are, what your protections are, what you're able to do, certainly here in Germany.
Yeah. In the US, a lot of parents who have kids on IEPs, they'll try to have an IEP meeting before the start of school. Yeah. And I think those are similar tactics that we can try, like, hey, I'm a new family, I'm just moving to the school. Who can I talk to about the process of getting my kids either in, or what will that look like? And really just trying to have a blueprint or a map, some type of guidance to help you navigate a little bit more successfully.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a lot to figure out in the beginning, and those are just the tangible things, not necessarily even how we feel about it, right? But there are just some important things to have in place and to get answers to, so you feel like I can't control how well or not well my child integrates the first couple days exactly, but I can make sure that I know what the laws are, that I know what the rules are, that I've perhaps let my company know that this is what this week is and what I'm likely going to need to do, and have some flexibility on. And those things have been set up ahead of time.
Or even, and I know this is a big sacrifice, but maybe you save the vacation time for the transition back to school and take that time off. And at least until you're familiar with how things work. But
and here you can, because there's more time. There's more time than in the U.S., right? In the U.S., you don't get very much vacation time typically, and here you do, and so it is often possible to save a few days.
Yeah. So if you don't live in the United States,
yes, then
this is an option.
That's
in
right.
most other parts of the world.
Yes. Very true.
Yeah.
Very true. Okay, so we've talked about some great things. We've talked about kind of helping your body, right? To regulate again. We've talked about tapping back into community, right? And getting some of those questions answered by some of the new people that you're meeting. But certainly, if you haven't done that yet, then looking at those parent groups, and each often even some of the schools specifically have parent groups online that you can really get some specific information from, and really making sure that you know what those things are, because there's so many variables with these transitions that at least you're pulling a few off, so that you're setting yourself up well.
And I know not everyone's able to get their child into a bilingual school or an international school if they do live abroad or somewhere where English is not or your native language is not the first language. So tapping into those schools as well can be beneficial. Well, just thinking about other strategies that we can try. Maybe just going in, hey, my child doesn't go here, but I really need some help on how to navigate. Do you guys have something that you offer your parents for induction?
How to acclimate and how to
can I have a copy of that?
Can I take a look?
I know my child doesn't come this year, but maybe next year.
They can always say no, but we can always ask, right?
Exactly. Yeah, don't be afraid. That is the number one rule. When you are someone who moves around is there's no bad answer, there's no dumb answer, there's no wrong answer. It's just
ask the question.
Take that fear away, because that alone is just anxiety piling up.
Well, that's it. And honestly, most people really want to help.
Yes.
They really want to help. They've been in exactly the same position as you, and they're really keen to share what they know and what they've learned, particularly when they're on the other side of it. I found that over and over and over again.
Yeah. Take that fear away. That fear is very internal. Yeah. Nobody's judging you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And we are usually our harshest critics. So.
We are. The expat community is very welcoming and very understanding. And in a lot of spaces, we usually only have ourselves, each other. And so, I think there's something peaceful about knowing that there's always going to be a community out there that wants to help you, because they don't want you to have to go through the trauma that they might have gone through.
That's it. The people are so willing. It's really touching, actually, and it surprised me how giving and supportive, and all it takes is to ask the question. Yeah, put yourself out there a little bit.
Yeah.
So it sounds like we have a bunch of things to talk about. I feel like there's so much more to talk about with anxiety. There's a lot more to talk about with transitions, and ways that we can tap into the body and help ourselves.
And I think as we're starting to talk about communicating more about our body or communicating with our body, we do need to have a topic or an episode on what's actually happening. Like, what is this sensory and overstimulation and dysregulation, and how does that all fit into anxiety, and how does that, why am I overwhelmed and burnt out? It's really trying to understand.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I would love to talk a little bit more about how we can follow that up with the mind, and how we can really be integrating. Because that would be a really cool
Mind
thing.
and body.
That's right. Mind and body. Let's get it done.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, this was a great episode.
Yeah, it was really fun. It was good to talk with you.
Yeah. All right. Well, until next time, everyone.
Until next time.